You are listening to the Green Living Chats podcast brought to you by Kamath Solutions in Ghana. I'm your host, David. Here, we discuss emerging environmental issues in and around the world. We use this platform to promote environmental related projects. So stick around with us. Here we go. Well, a warm welcome to you for tuning in and listening to the Green Living Chat podcast brought to you by Kamath Solutions in Ghana. And today we are continuing our conversation with Dr. Venkatesan, who is a teaching professor from the Department of Economics in the Northeastern University in Boston. Last week's episode on sustainability and economics was an eye-opening episode where our discussion really focused on how our standard of living has been manipulated or changed by economics, and also how economics and the new standard of living has affected or contributed to climate change and impact on sustainability. This conversation, as we always say, is available on all podcast platforms. Just Google or type Green Living Chats and you can have all these conversations available for your hearing. Today, we're going to get into Madhavi's non-profit organization, Sustainable Practices, where she tells us about some of the projects that they have undertaken and some of the goals they are hopeful to achieve. Most importantly, we discussed about what she describes as sustainable economic growth. I just can't wait for us to get into this conversation, so grab a coffee and let's get into this episode. I would like us to talk about sustainable economic growth shortly, but since you made mention of advocacy, I want us to talk a little bit about your nonprofit sustainable practices. So can you tell us a little bit of what your organization is doing and what you have been able to achieve, some of the challenges that you're facing so far?
Sure, be very happy to. I started this organization by myself, standalone, but over the course of about a year, I started to get other people on board. I live on basically an island off the coast of Massachusetts. I live on Cape Cod. It's comprised of 15 towns, and I have been involved in different aspects of environmental action for a while. And I've run for office unsuccessfully several times, which has actually been very beneficial to me because I learned a lot from that process. So in 2019, my organization started basically screening films, green documentary films, once a month. And we built a group around that. But then one of the films that I showed was a documentary about the first plastic bottle ban in the state of Massachusetts, but also in the United States. And that happened in Concord, a little bit outside of Boston. And that inspired me to think to myself, well, why can't we just do it here? But what I thought to myself is a sequential step forward would be better. So the first one was a municipal ban, which, because I looked at it from the standpoint of tax dollars, our tax dollars should not be spent on products that we think are not good for the human health or the environment. It doesn't make sense. Government shouldn't be supporting that. So we went after, we called a municipal plastic bottle ban. That has been adopted by 13 of those 15 towns. We have it on 2 town meeting warrants for this spring, so hopefully it will be voted on and accepted in those 2 town meetings. That would make us 15 out of 15 for that municipal ban. The municipal ban basically prohibits town government from purchasing single-use plastic bottled beverages, and it also then prohibits the sale of beverages in any single-use plastic container on town property. So basically, it's the first step forward to regulating. So in 2020, before the pandemic hit,
Before COVID.
we started to file in all these towns a commercial single-use plastic water bottle ban, which prohibits the retail sale of non-flavored, non-carbonated drinking water in plastic containers of less than a gallon in size. We were not able to have the spring meetings. We pushed them all off because of town government's desire, given the pandemic, to the fall. But we noted this is an urgent issue. And our logic is that if it's an urgent issue, it needs to be voted on now. So the meetings were happening, and we were asked to push it off again, but we recognized that a lot of these push-offs were because people just didn't want to deal with the change. And so we successfully passed in 7 towns, and we had it filed in 10. The other 3 were postponed. So we have filing of 4 more right now, so that will take us to 11 towns if we can pass that uh,
Hmm.
by by May or June, and then we'd only have 4 towns left, which we will try to get between
Beautiful.
the end of this year and early next year. Yes, because it would make the Cape, which is a very big tourist destination, a completely plastic water bottle free community, which means that people coming from Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, and other places in Massachusetts would take this perhaps away from with them as a learning lesson. We're asking people to use reusables, tap water. The one thing about tap water is you know what's in your water. You don't know what's in your bottled water. The issue that we're going to be facing though is Nestle Waters, which is the largest company in this particular market, has just sold their water businesses across the United States to private equity firms. And the plastic industry is trying to come back and claim that these bottles can be recycled, that they're going to buy back all these bottles and recycle them. Now, they haven't done that all these years. So why would they do it now? The
Exactly.
cost of petroleum is still cheaper to make new bottles. Recycling, we don't have the infrastructure for it. There are plans to build recycling plants, but what people don't recognize are the emissions, because these plants are usually built in areas where there are small populations, and the people there are already perhaps older or in some other way disenfranchised. And so they end up, like in Corpus Christi, Texas, having elevated cancer risks and very unusual cancers, but they go largely unreported and unnoticed. So this is an issue. The other part that's even perhaps even more of an issue that people should really think about is that we deplete another community's water resources when we bottle water, because we're taking water from another place, bottling it, and then selling it somewhere else. And because of the transactional nature, you're not connected to the fact that you're depleting somebody else's water source. So, in a way, we are also compounding the effect of our resource footprint. We're using more and more and more resources than we would if we just drank our own community water. So these are issues that we're hoping people will start to recognize, but it's a very slow process because over the last 50 years, we've really, in the United States, we've created a really selfish society.
You made mention of recycling, and I just want us to dig a little bit into it because the industry is relying on the concept of recycling. That is what we can use as the best solution. But obviously, we all know that recycling is not working because even in advanced countries, they are recycling less than 10% of their waste. And so, how do we even expect the developing countries and underdeveloped countries? They say that the products from recycling do not do well on the market, and the demand for these products are not so high. So, people who are beginning to indulge in this kind of business do not see the profits they're going to make. So, how do we expect recycling to be the best solution to this? From the economic point of view, what do you think?
Well, plastic, the first thing, just look at bottles. If
Yes.
you go down an aisle, every plastic bottle is a different density almost. Some of them even have a different color. So just from a logic perspective, even if you just think that they're all just going to be melted and put together, you've got to recognize that you can have this heterogeneous mix. It's not that they're not consistent. So you need to have actually more plastic put in to rebond. But what's happening with most of this recycling, since it wasn't designed to be reused. That's the most important thing. It wasn't designed, it's a design flaw. It was designed for single use. Is that it's becoming downcycled. So it's going into clothing fibers, construction materials, pavers, decks. But the problem is the product doesn't change. It never will biodegrade, and it still has a level of toxicity to the earth. And the fact that it's not biodegradable means that as it slowly starts chipping off and becoming microplastics, it's sticking
Exactly.
around forever. So we are contributing to that. And the issue with recycling is just also just in general, it goes back to the focus on just the outcome, the goal. The goal is just to make the money and only incorporate the costs that actually have a market value. So this product was created because you could externalize all the negative costs, the emissions and the depletion of resources at the beginning, because we could undervalue those, and then the disposal. So the only part that the manufacturer thinks about is the point of consumption, where they've taken water that they've taken for free from one community and plastic that they've manufactured using economies of scale and not taking into consideration all the external impacts, and created a product that maybe is worth 10 cents and selling it for $1.50. That's what they're capturing. That's all that they're thinking about. And this is where the crazy aberration of our system is. We are actually undercutting the very well-being that GDP metric is supposed to be measuring by the creation of products that have basically planned obsolescence in them and don't capture their full costs in the pricing. Because our time horizon for judging things is so narrow. Public companies have to report their profits quarterly. So they don't have a responsibility for the long-term impacts of their products. And people want their money right away. So they're not thinking about, well, oh my gosh, my money that I'm making right now is only going to help me pay for my medical costs 20 years from now. Our system is completely non-aligned to what it's actually trying to benefit, which is our lives. Because this is like the perfect example of any kind of entity that exists for one purpose, but because of its silos, has not integrated the individual entities within it. So they're all each going out after their own incentives with no umbrella to connect them. So they are all leading to our own demise. That's the real crazy thing. If we look about the health issues that have become normalized over the last 40, 50 years, why aren't we questioning that? Why is it that the health industry is the one that grows on a regular basis? Why aren't we questioning that?
Wow, this is so interesting.
Mhm.
Now, I know for sure your organization is working on how we can get the attention of policymakers to ban single-use plastics in your regions and all that. Other people have adopted so many different methods like zero waste. Some people are going vegan and all that. I know for sure in one way or the other, these people are contributing to change. But then, after all this change has been done, after we have achieved the ban has happened, we don't have single use plastics allowed in certain regions and all that. What happens to what is already in the system?
That that is a difficult question. I mean, we have all these landfills everywhere, all over the United States for sure. And they are, we know there's no biodegradation after the 5 feet,
Yeah,
when there's no oxygen.
that's it.
One big issue right there. Ideally, you want to think about an Earth that is able to dig all of this up to clean up the mess that we've made. But the first image that comes to mind, I don't know if you saw this movie Wall-E, where this little robot is left on Earth because the Earth has gotten so polluted and dirty and full of garbage, and he's supposed to be going out there one at a time and help cleaning up. Um, but that's sort of where we are. That's a trajectory that we're on. But I look at it from this perspective, and I'm not directly answering your question because there's some aspects of it I can't answer, but I look at it right now. The world is like a bag of rice that we, in terms of this particular problem or our pollution problem, a bag of rice that we have dropped on the floor and has just scattered everywhere. And now we're looking at this rice and we're saying, oh my gosh, this problem is so big. How am I going to get all that rice together again? Well, what we have to do is go to one rice item at a time and start small. And eventually, within a few hours, we would have cleaned up the whole mess. But if we stand and we look at the whole mess at one time, we will feel overwhelmed with our ability to clean it. So it's just a matter of just starting in one spot and starting the cleanup. I don't know what would be the way to clean up because we just talked about recycling, and we know that that's not going to be the process.
At all.
Also, you have commingled garbage. Ideal method would be incineration, if incineration was toxic free, which it isn't. So that whoever can develop a mechanism to actually reduce or eliminate the trash that we've already created would be a hero really for a lot of us. But that's really what does need to be developed. We need to figure out some way to get all of this trash that we've created out of the system so that nature can be able to clean
Regenerate.
herself. Yeah, clean herself. I mean, I guess from a body and from a holistic perspective, you could think of us as having affected the chakras of the earth. With all by putting all these lodging all this dirt here and garbage there in a way that it doesn't allow the free flow of energy in the earth. And that could be why we see climate change, for example. Climate change, if we wanted to put it in a different kind of analogy. But that's a very good question. I just think that hopefully that there will be science devote. That would be an area where science could actually have science to devote, but we'd still have to have LCAs related to the outcome, no matter what. Even if it's burned, you're still going to have toxic material that you won't be able to get rid of.
But in moving forward, you made mention of sustainable economic growth in one of your articles. And today, I just want us to briefly get into that, even as we get to the end of this discussion. What do you mean by sustainable economic growth, and how can we use economics to support or promote sustainability?
Well, sustainable economic growth means just having enough. It's about enough. It's not about more than that, and it's about finding our fulfillment outside of things. The biggest challenge for us to actually have sustainable economic growth is the size of our human population. There's just too many. And it's not that there are too many of us in the global south, it's that there are too many of us in the global north. Population has to be evaluated based on resource use or resource footprint. Global north individuals, just because we have declining population growth, arguably we should have much higher declining population levels because our resource footprints are so high. But that aside, we've talked about human relationships and what gives us meaning and significance. We've talked about virtue and morality. We've talked about what humans can do for the planet. We have dexterity, which other animals don't have. So we could actually get a tremendous amount of value out of our relationships with the environment itself. So sustainable economic development would really require us to stop hearing the marketing in our head and start to do what we need instead of what we are marketed to want. So that starts to change the economic structure itself. And we're seeing that happen, to your point earlier. People are starting to be much more cautious about what they buy. We have an increase in the sharing economy. All of this I refer to as the dog wagging its own tail. Before, we were a dog with its tail being wagged because GDP was forcing us to just go ahead and start consuming without even thinking about it. A GDP focus was. But today we can be in a situation, especially because of COVID in many ways. We've had a time to reflect on what's important to us. Many of us have benefited from not having to run around constantly from one place to another and have taken the time to reflect on what's sort of missing in our lives. And I doubt for most people what was missing in their lives was going to another meeting. What was missing in their lives was probably now an opportunity to see what kind of relationships they've let go to the side and how they haven't really connected with people as much as they'd like. Sustainable economic development is about reconnecting the human to what makes us human and to be mindful, to give ourselves an opportunity to really stop, reflect, and think about what really matters to us, not what we've been told matters to us, so that we can probably stop that treadmill that you referred to very early on our conversation, where we live in a world where we just have to work. I mean, that we're just in a machine and we constantly regenerate that machine. But let's think about this for 1 second, Dave. I mean, we all accomplish things. But in the world that we live in, no accomplishment that we do ever has any value because everybody's out trying to accomplish something at the same time. So that means that there's a hierarchy in our accomplishments, and some people just get valued and others don't. That's a very painful world to live in, isn't it? I mean, but what it means is that we all have one life, but not all of us get to live our life completely. Sustainable economic development means that we do. So we have to have less people. We have to have a connection to the environment that we live in, and we have to be satisfied with enough because we recognize that any more than enough means that something else doesn't have enough. So that's what I would offer. I wouldn't say that sustainable economic development is doing what we're doing today, but we have more recycling.
Definitely. I have really enjoyed this conversation, and it's really been an eye opening for me. And I just want to ask you a last question that if you have the chance to change anything or any behavior of human, of our behavior towards the environment, what would it be? What thing will you change about humans and our behavior towards the environment?
If I could change anything, I'm going to change the question a little bit. But there was one thing if I could ask, I would ask that love be the only thing that guides us. Real love, not romantic love, which is that marketed thing that we've been taught, but love, the action, the verb. That means that we recognize our interconnectivity and our responsibility and our ability to be the change. We are so powerful. We are more powerful individually than any of us know. And when we operate through the power of our love for doing the right thing, all the things that we talked about as problems, they all go away. So if I could activate anything, I I would I would want to activate people's concept of actually a strong familial kind of love for each other and for the world that we inhabit.
I have to be honest on this. No one has ever answered this question in this way before, and it's making me think, really, because if we are to really express love to each other, we are really going to do things differently. And the goal is not going to be, let's say, envy or probably to have everything on my side. I want to be the richest. I want to be the best. I want to have it all. Because for sure, I don't know what happens in people's brains when they are in the company and they know how much CO2 and how much gas they are emitting into the atmosphere every day. Who thinks about this? That I know I'm producing so much single use plastics every day, and I know what I put in the material when it's going out, and I know how long it's going to take for it to go out or probably degrade, and I still do it every day. Not thinking about, I had an interview with someone recently, and he made mention about something that now we realize that climate change, where it has gotten to, even if we were to stop the emissions, the earth cannot regenerate itself in the next couple of years. And so, which means that there are people who are right now seeing the impact of climate change, where other people have this sort of buffer solutions where they cannot feel the impact right now. So, what do we do about those people? It's not just about you becoming vegan because you think you are not contributing that much, but there's someone who is thinking of, well, next season the rains are not coming, so how are they going to grow their crops? um the rains came, but this time it's like a flood. All the crops are gone, all the animals are gone. They are living quite a simple life, but what happens to them? What can we provide to them right now to exist? And what you said is really making me think about this, that if we really express this kind of love to each other, we could overcome all these things. That's was a very powerful thing to say, and I think it's going to mean a lot to a lot of people who will be listening to this. And thank you so much, for making time for this podcast. I really, really appreciate everything that you are doing, and I think that you're one of the voices that really need to be heard. And I know this is not going to be the last time we'll be talking on this podcast, but I hope that we can have more opportunities to talk about subjects that really matter, and people can be educated and also add their voice in advocacy and pushing for change to happen. I don't know if you have any last words.
No, I just want to thank you so much for this opportunity because I also, just like you, believe that the more that we listen, the more we can perhaps see where we can use our own life experiences to be part of the change that needs to be made on a universal global basis. So thank you for all that you're doing, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and hope to see you soon.
Yes, thank you.
So that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Madhavi, for joining us on this podcast. And also to you for sharing, liking, listening, and for commenting and even giving us a rating on any platform where you get your podcast. We hope that this information has been eye-opening for you, just as it has been for me. And we also know that for sure this conversation is going to get started among ourselves and is going to reach our policymakers to start making differences in our livelihoods. Definitely, standards have changed. The economy is affecting so many things. Our direction and our narrative has really changed based on the different ways that we see other things now. Think about it. Get this conversation running among your friends, your family, and people that you know around you. And just as Madhavi said, if we could show a little more love among ourselves, we could do things differently. Let's take care of the environment, and it will definitely take care of us. Join us again on the next episode, and until then, live green.